Most of us see dates that begin in the first year and go onward when we discuss history. The question is, however, what about everything that occurred before year one? Long before the present calendar, civilizations, kingdoms, and cultures flourished. The unknown period before year one affected the globe in ways we seldom ever consider, from ancient empires to enigmatic technologies. This video will reveal a fascinating, little-known period of history by examining what life was like before the calendar was invented. 1. The mysteries of the calendar. Why year one? Let's first explore the rationale for the selection of year one before delving into what was there. The Gregorian calendar, which was first used in the 16th century, is the basis for the system we now use. However, a monk by the name of Dionysius Exiguus developed the so-called Anno Domini system in the 6th century, which counts the years from the birth of Jesus Christ. Accordingly, year one is a Christian construct that wasn't even in use in antiquity. Time was measured differently by the Romans, Greeks, Egyptians, and Chinese. People lived in rich, complicated worlds with their own counting systems prior to the first year of our calendar. 2. Mesopotamia in antiquity, the birthplace of civilization. Mesopotamia, the region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, was already flourishing long before our modern calendar. The first towns in human history were constructed by the Sumerians in 3000 BCE. They produced intricate law codes, trading networks, and temples known as ziggurats, in addition to creating cuneiform writing, one of the first writing systems. Mesopotamia had already seen the rise and collapse of civilizations such as the Babylonians and Assyrians by the time year one in the Gregorian era arrived. One of the first documented legal codes, the well-known Code of Hammurabi, was carved in 1750 BCE, or around 2,000 years before the so-called beginning of time. 3. Egypt, the age of the Pharaohs. Egyptian culture is thousands of years older than the first year. By the time Jesus was born, the Great Pyramids of Giza were already quite old. These monuments, which were constructed about 2,500 BCE, demonstrate the Egyptians' proficiency in astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. The Nile River, which gave life to the desert, was central to the pharaohs' culture, and they governed as both kings and gods. Thousands of years before commencement of our current calendar, hieroglyphic writing, sophisticated medicine, and colossal construction were all thriving. Therefore, even though we consider the first year to represent the beginning, Egypt was already home to many eternal beauties. 4. Greece prior to the first year. Ancient Greece is often praised for its art, philosophy, and democracy. However, all of this took place long before the calendar was reset. By 500 BCE, democracy had been founded in Athens. Greek mathematicians were establishing the foundations of science, and philosophers such as Plato and Socrates were engaged in debate over the most important issues of existence. In 323 BCE, Alexander the Great, the founder of one of the greatest empires in history, passed away. The Greek Golden Era had long since passed by the time year one arrived, but the Roman Empire, which greatly appropriated Greek culture, continued to be influenced by it. 5. The rise of the Roman Empire. Rome was already a superpower when we reached year one in the Gregorian sense. Rome was founded in 753 BCE and had spread over the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe. Much of the known globe was kept together by Roman law and military might, demonstrating that pre-first year history was dynamic and shaped the world. 6. Knowledge and kingdoms in ancient India. Long before the year one, civilizations in India were thriving. Around 2500 BCE, one of the first urban cultures in history flourished, the Indus Valley Civilization. Buddhism and Hinduism were growing in popularity, and large kingdoms like Ashoka's Maurya Empire, 3rd century BCE, controlled enormous swaths of land. India's academics studied astronomy, medicine, and mathematics long before Europe did. 7. Ancient China, pre-year one, dynasties. The history of China predates the beginning of our calendar by thousands of years. Early Chinese political, philosophical, and cultural systems were formed throughout the Zhou and Shang dynasties, 1600 to 1046 BCE and 1046 to 256 BCE, respectively. Qin Shi Huang became China's first emperor and unified the country by 221 BCE. The Han Dynasty was thriving by the first year, growing commerce along the Silk Road and becoming one of the world's most developed empires. 8. The Americas prior to the first year. Although civilizations existed in Europe, Africa, and Asia, the Americas were also flourishing long before the invention of the current calendar. The Shavan civilization of Peru, 900 BCE, was developing in both art and religion at the same time in South America. Despite being entirely outside of the Old World, these civilizations were also developing and influencing the history of mankind before our time. 9. Daily life. Prior to year 1. Only monarchs and empires come to mind when one thinks about ancient history. But what about common people? Prior to year 1, farming, trading, and communal living characterized existence. People before year 1 experienced love, conflict, family, and ambition, the same human feelings we feel today, even if it was more difficult to survive without modern technology. 10. The lost information. The information that predates year 1 is among the most intriguing facets of the vanished age. The precision with which ancient astronomers followed the stars was astounding. Advanced equations were computed by mathematicians in Babylon. Egyptian physicians authored medical literature and conducted surgery. In conclusion, what was there prior to the first year? A lot is the response. Every continent saw a flourishing of human creativity, the rise and fall of whole civilizations, and the birth of ideas that continue to influence our world today. The first year was only a point in a much longer timeline. It wasn't the beginning. Long before our calendar began counting, people were leading intricate, intriguing lives all across the world, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, Greece to Rome, India to China, and even the Americas. One of humanity's most inventive and potent periods was the lost age before year 1. Like, share, and subscribe for more.